For Americans at war, music was a special event.
See what the boys in the back room will have, and tell them I'm having the same. Go see what the boys in the back room will have, and give them the poison they name. And when I die, don't spend my money on flowers and my picture in a frame. Just see what the boys in the back room will have, and tell them I sighed, and tell them I cried, and tell them I died of the same.
Thousands of American women, less famous than Marlene Dietrich, went overseas with the Red Cross.
The soldiers were never expecting us, and so they were always dumbfounded to find out even that we spoke English. We would serve the hot coffee very often. They hadn't had any in a long time. They were all standing around in rows very dejectedly. You had to keep in mind all the time that you were being cheerful and bright and not looking at what might be happening ahead. And that's pretty heart-wrenching.
In Europe and in the Pacific, the Red Cross tried to bring a touch of home to the war front. Sometimes it was hard going. The Red Cross women were not everywhere all of the time, but when they did show up, they helped the men forget the war for a moment or two and remember how things used to be at home. During the war, 140,000 Red Cross volunteers with their jeeps and trucks and trailers handed out 80 million cups of coffee a year, 125 million donuts, and who can count how many smiles? But what meant most to the men overseas was not the coffee and donuts, but just every now and then meeting somebody from back home. The loneliness, fatigue, the yearning to go home grew stronger with each battle the American men survived. Some days it seemed that the war would never end.
I'll be seeing you in every lovely summer's day, in everything that's light and gay.
August 26, 1944, the liberation of Paris. Only 2.5 months after D-Day, American tanks were rolling along the tree-lined streets of Paris. General de Gaulle was back from exile. American soldiers marched up the grand boulevards. The crowds of French people, their faces, all unforgettable. For a couple of million Parisians, the agony of war was over. It was a day filled with images that would linger forever. The young Americans who went off to war were not conquerors or colonizers or crusaders. They didn't want to stay, and they had no interest in teaching anybody anything. But people overseas learned from them. A bit of slang, some bad habits, some new ideas, including the revelation that Americans were not supermen, and the young Americans were not totally resistant to foreign influence. Some took home war brides. Almost all took home some understanding that the world was much older and bigger than the place they came from.